Big 12 is making waves with this new NCAA settlement. And honestly, in terms of this conference, Baylor might be one of the most pivotal schools when it comes to this settlement. We'll talk about it on Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, and welcome into another episode of Locked On Baylor. I am your host, Cam Stewart from ESPN Central Texas and the Rogue Media Sports Network. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. New uncle, kind of. I've been an uncle before, but my sister-in-law, my brother gave birth. Well, my sister-in-law gave birth to a baby yesterday. So I wanted to share that great news with you guys, this Baylor family. But of course, what we'll really be talking about today is not my nephew, but rather this NCAA settlement that the Big 12 apparently unanimously, I've heard some differing reports on that, voted in favor of. They're the first conference to say yes to this settlement, and how that is going to affect the whole conference, the college football landscape, and of course Baylor in there too. We're going to talk about one of their new basketball players, one of their new assistant coaches. Actually commented on him on the other day and had some interesting things to share about him that I hadn't initially thought of or I hadn't initially talked about. And yes, the great conspiracy lives on and got a real, some real fire to the flames yesterday. We're going to talk about that and what that could possibly be. And is Baylor Athletics toying with us again? We will see. The Big 12, though, they were the ones who made the headlines yesterday. They accepted the terms of the NCAA settlement that has a lot going on. If you're watching on YouTube, you could see like bags under my eyes. I have been exhaustedly pouring through this all day. I have been calling and texting people all day because you guys know me. I'm not, one of the world's great readers or being very attentive to detail. I'm more of a meathead. So this legal stuff really trips me up a lot. And I'm trying to dissect all that goes in there. But basically, this settlement, what it's big for is the back pay. Right. I mean, this is for athletes who played after 2016, but before NIL was signed. This is a way for them to get in on the money. Now, a personal editorial. Why do they get to do that? I'm not so sure. I'm not. That's the thing that kind of tripped me up was like, why? I have personally no problem these athletes getting the money. It's not my money, but it is kind of like, well, why? I sometimes in life you're just SOL. I needed to take 4 semesters of a foreign language at Baylor, but it used to be that you could do 2 years of each classic language, so Greek and Latin, and that's what I started to do. And in the middle of it, they changed it to you needed to do 4 semesters of Latin, and so I did 4 semesters of Latin. And right after I left, it became 3 semesters of Latin. I didn't get any back pay for that, So it's an intrigue. That's an intriguing part to me. But this settlement will result probably in the NCAA paying for more than $2.7 billion in back damages over a decade, and about 1.6 billion of that is going to be withheld from schools entirely. So that is a huge number. There's a lot going on there. That's about 277 million a year. Roughly $20 million in permissive revenue sharing is expected to begin in the fall of 2025. Of course, the Big 12 right in the middle of this, not just by agreeing to the terms, but also being aggressive in their media deal and how that's being split up. We talked about last week, are they going to take any ACC schools because of how this revenue is going to split up? They would have to, each school would have to get less in this scenario. And now that becomes even more prevalent because now your athletic departments have to go and figure out how this money is going to be, how it's going to be paid in the next 10 years. And that's obviously that's the big gaudy part of the settlement is just the money figures. And it kind of goes back to what Mac Rhodes was saying a couple weeks ago about, he was saying 85 to 95% of schools are just not going to be able to afford this and keep their head above water. And, that's obviously going to look different between Power 4 and Group of 5 schools because of how this is split up. This is mainly looking at the Power 4 and they're going to pay a good chunk of this. But it's there's a lot of money figures being thrown around, and from what I read, there's not a lot of guarantees in it, and that it was expressly written that there might still be more lawsuits in the future. We don't know how Title IX factors into this, which it will factor into. It has to factor into this. Um, and there are some experts who were in the Ross Dellinger story who were saying that that will probably go to court as well. And then what? Then what if you've already done the settlement and all of a sudden that those money figures change because there's a Title IX aspect to it and there's more money that needs to be distributed. There's so much to this, and the NCAA I think is getting a little desperate, as are some conferences as well, to get this settlement across, because as is also mentioned in the Dellinger story, if they don't, um, or even if they do and they decide to pay that money right away rather than over 10 years, they can file for bankruptcy. And there is a world where that's going to happen. The NCAA filing for bankruptcy here in the next few years, in order to make sure these payments get out. And I don't know, man. It's a lot there. And Baylor, even being a power conference school, is going to have to look long and hard about how this money is going, where this money is going to come from, and how it's going to be distributed. Um, and there's talks about in this settlement about a cap in there, that some schools could adhere to, or more of a guideline, not a hard cap, about how much should go to NIL or back pay or this, that, and the other, pay to play, whatever it is. But as long as we have collectives and NIL, that's still not going to even things out. In my opinion, that looks like it's not going to make it an even playing field. That's just going to make, it's just, it doesn't change the fact that a school like Nebraska, who has not been nearly as competitive as a school like Baylor or TCU has been on the football field the last decade, will infinitely have better resources because they have more money and more collectives. So yeah, you can cap them at how much a university can pay, but there's still those collectives out there. So it is something that Baylor is going to need to think about. Now, that said, I will say this about Brett Yormark. I haven't agreed with everything he's done, but when it comes to a financial sense, he's played the right cards, right? The media deal that he struck in his early days as the Big 12 commissioner put the Big 12 in a not just stable, but a really good spot financially from where they were the year before. And we saw another major conference completely fall apart after over 100 years because they didn't do what Brett Yormark did. And so he was on the cutting edge of that. When other conferences were trying to figure out expansion and keeping schools on board, he was not only going for expansion, but also getting that money right. And he did it. So I would say I would lean towards that experience and say this is probably a good thing for the Big 12. But boy, I am trying to figure it all out, and how this is going to affect our great conference and, of course, our great school as well. Whew. 3 things you need when reading those write-ups on the settlement: passion, drive, and patience, man. The formula for reading that and winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, you're not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car to the MVP and bring home the huge win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions do apply. That Guaranteed Fit is only available for our U.S. customers. And that is, again, ebaymotors.com. Money talks. It does. Let me tell you, it talks in college football. It certainly talks in college basketball as well. And now you have to have NIL packages with whomever you bring in. through the transfer portal. And we know Baylor basketball has been great at that the last couple of years. And this has been a terrific transfer class so far. Because again, I don't think they're done with that yet. But so far, of course, Jeremy Roach, Norchad O'Meara, those are the big names. And then Jalen Celestine comes along. Kid from Cal, wing, 6'7", good left-handed shooter, man. Shot, 44% from three a year ago. High volume shooter, not exactly. He was coming off an injury. He didn't start every game, started most of them. And the scoring numbers weren't huge, but when he was shooting, he can make them. His corner threes, they're incredible. But does that make you a starter at Baylor these days? Not sure. This is, and that's a good thing because this is the testament to how great the program is, that they might need a more well-rounded game to go into the starting lineup. And so I asked Steve Henson about it. We interviewed him for the Matt Mosley Show on ESPN Central Texas at the end of last week. And I think we got some great answers out of Steve, including the fact that they are still building that roster. But I had asked him, what does Jalen Celestine bring? And here's what my pal, former UTSA coach Steve Henson had to say. Well, we haven't gotten the full scouting report from Jalen Celestine coming in from Cal. He's one of those, obviously, those stretch guys who can really shoot it from the outside. What was it that you guys saw in him?
Well, a lot. I mean, that certainly gets your attention with just his stroke and his shooting percentage, and some of the analytics on him, were just through the roof in certain categories, and we felt like he's going to be able to do more. Just like his ability to handle the ball and attack, and we certainly hope to help him continue to grow his game. Great kid, great family, and we think he's got a chance to be really special. So, it was exciting to be part of that visit, and he's going to be a great Baylor Bear.
We think he can be more. That's what you love to hear, because that's what has built this program, the last 2 decades, but specifically the last decade, in terms of bringing guys in. I know that hasn't all been portal time, but bringing in the transfers, each one of these guys becomes better. Like every single one of them. No one gets worse. I'll say that when they come in through the portal. Like nobody gets worse. I mean, you think about a guy like Dale Bonner, man, coming from D2, comes into Baylor. It looks like he's got a red shirt, gets thrust into a role late in that 21-22 season because so many guys were hurt, does a job for you. And the next year, he's like a knockdown shooter. Transfers out, sure, there was a log jam, but he goes to Ohio State. So a Big Ten program, hits a buzzer beater for them. Like all these guys, they come out and they're better. And of course, you would say that about, Maceo Teague and Adam Flagler and these guys coming from smaller levels, or even someone like an Auburn, Davion Mitchell comes in and is a top 10 pick in the draft after that. So I love to hear that. We like the player that he was at Cal, but we like the player he's going to be at Baylor even better. Because you look at the highlights and the stats back this up too. He was mostly a spot-up shooter at Cal, and wasn't one that was putting up 15 shots a game. Just wasn't doing it. So he was very good at what he did, but I think there is more to contribute. And I think I did say this when initially looking at his tape. I just said, this kid is a big, solid body, and I know you can have big guys that just shoot. I get that. But I think with his body type, he can give you even more. And the numbers from the College Basketball Scout on YouTube, which is great for these portal guys, he shoots 60% at the rim. And he's a terrific transition player, scoring in transition, which I think Baylor has been untapped in terms of transition offense over the last couple of years with the guys they've had. I think they could be a better transition team and really run out on some teams. And I think Jalen Celestine can give you that. And so do you have to be more well-rounded to be a starter on this team? Sure. You can't just be a spot-up shooter. I could agree with that. And I think he's going to give you that. I think he is. Now, that said, he will have the opportunity if he wants, or if it's part of the offense or part of the scheme in that game, to be a guy who hangs out in the corner, because that's where he shoots it the best. In fact, one of the corners, I don't remember which one. One of the corners, he shoots like 60% from three. It's incredible. He really thrives out there. And I think this is going to be the place where he's going to take the right amount of shots, if that makes sense. He's not probably not going to shoot 15, but he's also not going to shoot 4. This is an offense that I think is going to look like the Jacobs style of offense with a guy like Steve Henson in there whose teams love to run. And he's going to be working with the guards primarily, I think. His UTSA teams, they ran the heck out of it. They were some of the best pace teams at all of college basketball. I mentioned his time with OU and Lon Kruger. I mean, that was a fast pace, like 85, 90, 95 points a game kind of team, even in the Big 12 with Buddy Hield and the gang, So this is a guy who's working with guards and he likes to push the pace. And we have seen teams the last couple of years here that have been guard dominant, that are very fast, that shoot very well, but maybe necessarily haven't pushed the pace. It hasn't hurt them. But I think you could see that. And you got a couple of guys who are real good in transition. I'm talking about a Celestine, but I'm also talking about a VJ Edgecombe, a guy like Jaden Nunn, who, you remember that middle of the season when he started heating up, it was because he was getting to the basket a lot and running a lot. Like this is a team that could do that. Absolutely. They'll need to work out a little bit more depth in the front court in order to keep up a pace like that. But this is a team that you could see very much doing a lot of run and gun basketball. And if this kid can fit in, but was playing in a real knockdown, drag out, half court type of offense at Cal that did win a lot of games, then he could really realize his full potential here. And it's something I talked about in the first segment we did on him, is he just keeps getting better production wise. Like he was not, I don't think he ever averaged more than 12 points a game in high school. He I think has averaged double figures once in college. Like but the numbers keep getting better. His shooting keeps getting better. His efficiency rating keeps getting better. So it's not wild to think that he's going to start playing his best basketball at age 22 or 23 because he's playing for Scott Drew and Steve Henson and the Baylor Bears. I think that's pretty fair to say that will be coming. I don't want to put pressure on the kid or anything, but we see a terrific shooting stroke. The coaching staff sees that, but they see even more to his game. They see him as a kid who can get to the basket, put the ball on the floor and get to the basket, which that's a vote of confidence because we really did not see a lot of that from him at Cal. And look, if Steve Henson's thinking that, I got to think that too. I really could see this kid becoming a contributing factor to a team that has just been lights out offensively the last couple of years. And he does give you, like what Jalen Bridges gave you, a big, long body that can cover a couple of different positions defensively as well. So we love the offensive potential. Would love to see some defensive potential from everyone on the team. That's something that I think needs to get better this year as well. But that was encouraging to hear that, Henson was saying, yeah, we knew about the threes, and that's great. But we see a lot more in this kid because he could have easily been, politicking and still said, we love what he gives you on the 3-point arc, and didn't say anything about his ball handling or his potential rebounding or getting to the basket. We would have been none the wiser. But he did say, no, seriously, we think this kid can do a lot of things for us. And I really like to hear that. Another thing I like to hear, see, whatever, was on the app formerly known as Twitter, now known as X, Baylor Athletics, or was it Baylor Football? One of them put out this like mini hype video. By mini, I mean like 10 seconds of, looking up from a concourse like to your seats at McLean Stadium at nighttime. The lights are on and everything. And it just said 5/28/24. Which at the time of recording is 6 days from now. Actually, time of recording is a week from now. Time you're listening is 6 days from now. And it was very vague. Very vague. Nothing out, like literally nothing. It was just like walking up the steps to the upper deck at McLean Stadium. That was it. But the people started buzzing. The Baylor people started buzzing. they said this has to be uniforms. It's got to be uniforms, right? Like with all the weirdness of the tweets last week and the EA Sports NCAA football game, and there was a team coming out of Baylor's tunnel that did not look like Baylor, then it's got to be uniforms. And I had a whirlwind of a day with this because that was my first thought. Yes, has to be. But then I thought, Cam, there's been plenty of times the last couple of years where you have said this is the uniform reveal. Or this is, we're going to do a blackout for this game or something with uniforms that is going to be cool. And it never ended up being that. It was always renew your season tickets, or here's how you can give us more money, or here's what we've added to the stadium this year and the game day experience and all that. And I even with a new scoreboard in there, I think it's uniforms. I came back around to it later. I said, you know what? I did like a little checklist. We already know what the schedule is. Okay. They already did the season ticket renewal and choose your seats for season ticket holders. They've done that. They've done that stuff. It has to be uniforms. It has to be. We're dying for it, man. It's got to be uniforms. It's probably going to be like another This Is Bear Country type thing. Oh, you can buy a sticker or a cooler that says Bear Country. Great. It's got to be uniforms. It has to be. Like there's too much circumstantial evidence to it. Again, the EA Sports video game rolls out this trailer and there's a team coming out at McLean Stadium that is wearing different uniforms from what Baylor wears. And Baylor Athletics tweeted the picture and then took it down, deleted the tweet. Like, come on, man. And by the way, we did see like a screenshot of it, of what was actually on there. And it looked like green, all green, pickle type of look, but a little bit different subtlety. Like the numbers were white. Looks like they had like a little Green Bay Packers thing on the side, like the gold and the white, or I guess Pittsburgh Steelers had it too, but this is with green. I am fully intrigued. You guys know by now I'm a huge uniform guy. I have not been a fan of Baylor's football uniforms, neither of many people. I thought we had a great thing going with that. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the basketball uniforms either. I love the anthracite, the like charcoal that they wore for the national championship. I think that's a great look, but overall I find their uniforms to be pretty bland, pretty boring, and I don't like the vault gray ones either. So across the board, there's work to be done from that rebranding they did right as I was graduating in 2019. But football needs to be first and foremost. And I would love it if they went back to a real gold and a real gold helmet. But I guess beggars can't be too much of choosers. I think almost no matter what, it's going to look better than it did. And I think back to that second to last game of the season at TCU with the yellow helmets, white jerseys with green numbers, and then yellow pants was just a terrible look. And to go up there and get beat down by your most hated rivals when they weren't even having a good year, and to be wearing those uniforms on top of that, I felt for the players, man. That stinks. They should be able to go out there with some more confidence because they've got cooler swag on, but they haven't the last couple of years. So anyway, I would love to hear from you guys on who or on what this uniform should look like. What elements do you have to have in there? I would love to hear that because I will continue to talk about this until they release the uniforms. Drop that down in the comments below. Also, with this new settlement, help me understand it a little bit more. I think I'm going to end up doing a segment on which Baylor athlete that played in that time deserves the most payment, because that's another hurdle to all of this. Drop your suggestions down in the comments below. Would love to hear from you guys. Be sure to like and subscribe. Ring the notification bell. We'll drop a video every weekday on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.